Hello, and welcome to Things We Said Today, our bi-weekly podcast about anything and everything to do with the Beatles, collectively, individually, past, present, sometimes even things to come. I'm Allan Kozinn, the author of The Beatles from the Cavern to the Rooftop and Got That Something, How the Beatles, I Want to Hold Your Hand Changed Everything, and co-author with Adrian Sinclair of The McCartney Legacy, Volume 1 in red and 2 in blue are out, and volume 3 is, let's say, in the works. I'm joined by my esteemed co-hosts, Ken Michaels, who you know as the host of the syndicated Beatles radio show Every Little Thing, and co-host of the solo Beatles podcast Talk More Talk. He also has his own YouTube channel, Ken Michaels Radio, which is packed with Beatles related stuff. So, Ken, how's it going?
It's going great. I am looking forward to this show and the special guests we're about to unveil to you.
Okay. And Darren DeVivo, who has been a force in New York radio for more than 40 years and is also part of the Talk More Talk podcast crew. Hello, Darren.
Hello, Alan. Hi, Ken. Hey, everyone. It's going to be a great show today.
Okay. Um, I think we can say who the special guest is because anybody looking at the podcast will have seen it in
That's true.
the title. And it is Denny Seiwell, the first drummer for Wings, and now the author of this book, Denny Seiwell, The Best and Worst of Times, a little bit of Dickens reference in there, which he co-wrote with Robyn Flans. So it's an interesting book, and we will be chatting with Denny soon after the news. And the news, Ken will tell us.
Okay. Thank you, Alan. First, we begin with the release, of course, of the new box set of Power to the People, which includes music from the two concerts that John, Yoko, and Elephant's Memory did for the one-to-one benefit shows at Madison Square Garden in 1972. Most of the songs, all but one, from the Sometime in New York City album, remixed, rehearsals for the album, other concert appearances, TV appearances, evolution mixes, home recordings, and music from the film Clock, which was recorded at the St. Regis Hotel in New York City in 1971. John, on that particular recording, performing many 50 songs in particular on acoustic guitar, especially a lot from Buddy Holly. There are various configurations for its release, including a 9 CD, 3 Blu-ray audio box set with a 204-page hardback book. And we will be covering it in our next show with Gary Van Syok, the bass player from Elephant's Memory. That'll be coming up next week. To coincide with its release, the new December issue from Mojo magazine will have a feature on the box set, as they often do, and will include a bonus CD sampler with nine, has to be nine tracks from the release. Sean is interviewed in this issue, and regarding the controversy on removing the song Woman is the N of the World, he said that decision, quote, was hard because it wasn't just something that I decided personally. It's something that everyone was advising. No one wanted to put it out. He added, I think it's a really important song, but times have changed, and I'm not going to bring any more negativity to my parents than I have to. Would you like to respond to what Sean just said there? Either of you?
I, I mean, I applaud his honesty. It explains and sets the record straight. So,
I personally think Sean was sort of forced into that decision. I mean, I don't know anything other than the quote that you just read because he hasn't said very much about it, apart from retweeting people's tweets saying that it was universal. But here's the thing. I don't know for if anyone read my Wall Street Journal review. Um, it seemed to me that although the song is not in the set in any way. I mean, it had been performed at both one-to-one concerts, and it's gone from that, and it's gone from Sometime in New York. We know that there was going to be a Sometime in New York reissue in 2022. There was a web page on the Lennon's sort of website, sort of
Right.
suggesting that it was coming, and then it didn't come. And it's hard not to believe that the reason was sort of a battle over that song between Sean and Universal. Um, and in the book, the Sometime in New York cover is shown twice. Okay. Now, those of you who remember the Sometime in New York cover know that the lyrics of that song are like on the center of the front cover. And so all the lyrics are there in the book twice. And one time it is next to a letter from John to Bhaskar Menon, the chairman of EMI, talking about how sick and tired he is of his work being censored by the label. He's talking about at the time the fact that the label put a sticker over the picture of Nixon and Mao dancing naked, which is sort of referred to in "We're All Water," Yoko's song. Um, and they put a sticker that you couldn't peel off without wrecking the photo. And that's what he was complaining about. But I can't believe that it's an absolute coincidence that we have the cover of the album with the song right there, right next to a letter from John saying he's sick and tired of his work being censored. So I kind of think that that was a little bit of a stealth message from Sean to
Hmm.
us and to Universal and to anyone curious about it. Now, I may be overthinking it. It's what I do. But but there we go. So that's
Okay.
That's very possible.
Mhm,
Yeah, that's his way of getting the song in there somehow.
mhm.
Okay, at a recent listener party in New York City, attended by Darren and myself, Sean was there along with Simon Hilton, who told us that he is Simon Hilton, really enjoying working on the Lennon box sets, and he can't wait to bury himself deep into the next project, which will be Walls and Bridges, which likely will be out about the same time next year. Also coming out soon will be a children's picture book from Sean for his recent Academy Award winning animated film, Happy Christmas War is Over, from Penguin Random House, which will be coming out November the 4th. And you can now pre-order that online. Simon Hilton, who worked on the production of the box sets, he's been working with Sean for the Lennon ones prior to this. And oh, incidentally, when I spoke to Simon, I said I really love the format of the box sets. The evolutionary mixes, how you hear songs without the drums or songs without the lead vocals, and you get a whole new perspective on the songs and all the work that was put behind them when you listen to all these various mixes. And he said to me, there's something that we probably never knew, that was all Yoko's idea to
Hmm.
do it. Okay, so thank you, Yoko, for getting the ball rolling and presenting it in this particular fashion. Okay, should just mention the Beatles anthology book. Its 25th edition has just been released, which you can now get in stores, whatever stores are left, and online. Okay, Ringo's first four albums are coming out on colored vinyl very soon. Sentimental Journey on Buttermilk Yellow, Buku's of Blues, Baby Blue vinyl, the Ringo album Molten Lava, and Goodnight Vienna Psychedelic Waves color, each costing around $30, coming out October 24th. It's exclusive on Ringo Starr's site, available for pre-order now. Also on Record Store Day, November 28th, it'll be the first ever vinyl release for Choose Love, and that'll be coming out on ruby red vinyl. I'm told 1,500 copies have been made for that. I can also tell you that I finally heard today the new duet between Chrissie Hynde and Julian Lennon of It's Only Love, which is on Chrissie's new album of duets. And I'm sure you can listen to it off of YouTube and Spotify at this point. October 24th is the date for Julian's EP coming out of 4 songs called Because. Also, just running down upcoming releases, which are all happening all at once. November the 4th is the book, Wings, the story of a band on the run. November 7th is when the Wings compilation is coming out, just called Wings. November 21st is the Beatles anthology, volumes 1 through 4. And November 26th is when the video for the Beatles anthology will premiere on Disney Plus. Mark Lewison is in the news. He attended the recent Liverpool Beatles convention and interviewed several people there, and now you can watch these interviews on YouTube. The first of which that appeared on YouTube was with Jeff Britton, then Thelma McGuff, who we mentioned in our last show, the former Thelma Pickles, John Lennon's first girlfriend, who has a new book coming out next year called From Me to You, and Billy J. Kramer. They're all on YouTube. If you love Mark Lewison, and who doesn't? He does great interviews. You can watch interviews individually with those 3 people. Thelma McGuff, by the way, she married Roger McGuff from the
Okay.
Scaffold. So you got a little connection there with Mike McCartney being in the Scaffold and all. The new Beatles documentary that I mentioned in our last show, A Love Letter to the Beatles, is all about the world's love, past and present, for the group, and with people sharing their memories, new fans discovering their music, and it is streaming now on Amazon Prime, Peacock, Fandango, Tubi, and Flex, and others. It features appearances from Pete Best, Rogue Best, Richard Porter, Susan Shumsky, Debbie Greenfield, The Quarrymen, Lawrence Juber, Shannon McDonald, Julia Baird, the Bootleg Beatles, the Fab Four, the tribute band, the Fab Four, Skylar Moody, Ruth and Angie McCartney, Billy J. Kramer, Vivek Tiwari, Tom Murray, Richard Mills, and a few others. And you could also order the film right now on DVD or Blu-ray. Okay? You heard me mention Borrowed Time, the documentary on John Lennon, the last decade of his life. Alan G. Parker is the director of the film. We interviewed him here a couple of months ago about the documentary, and the question came up because he mentioned it'll be coming out on DVD and Blu-ray. Um, Alan wrote to me saying that it'll be shown uh, in on December the 8th in New York City. I have the location. It's the AMC movie theater at Lincoln Square. That's on December the 8th. It's in theater number 9. And the US premiere, that is the US premiere of the film, and that'll be followed by a DVD and Blu-ray release. Amazon UK says a new book from photographer Jim Marshall comes out next June the 2nd, called The Beatles by Jim Marshall, Live at Candlestick Park 1966. Jim Marshall was the only photographer allowed backstage to photograph the Beatles during the Candlestick Park concert. This book brings you into the historic moment and makes you feel like part of the band. This deluxe volume collects over 150 photos and proof sheets, half of them never before seen. The late photographer, who died in 2010, is widely celebrated as a premier rock photographer and pioneer of the genre. This will be coming out on hardback from Chronicle Books. Okay, that comes from our good friend John Bazzini, who supplies us with so much news, especially on books coming out. A reminder that come December, the magazine Record Collector will have an entire issue devoted to George Harrison. This follows the last 2 years when they had issues each for John and Paul. We have to mention a few major passings here. First of all, Joe Dara has died. Joe was a high-profile entertainment publicist who represented Paul McCartney, Elton John, David Bowie, Brian Wilson, Billy Joel, Paul Newman, Tony Bennett, Queen, ZZ Top, The Sparks, and more. Darren represented Paul McCartney for more than 20 years, and Ringo Starr as well. He oversaw David Bowie's Serious Moonlight Tour. He represented Live Aid, Amnesty International, Woodstock 99, and the Rainforest Alliance concert. Joe Dara died last Friday, October 10th, in Mississippi. He was 74. What a resume there.
Wow.
Also, we note the passing of actress Susan Kendall Newman, who starred in I Want to Hold Your Hand. She was also Paul Newman's daughter. Susan died from complications from chronic health conditions. She was 72. She played one of the six teenagers who tried to sneak their way into the Beatles' first performance on The Ed Sullivan Show. And also, we have to note the passing of John Lodge of the Moody Blues, although there's really no Beatle connection that I know of between John Lodge and the Beatles. He was a part of the British invasion, the Moody Blues being one of the all-time great bands, not only British bands, but greatest bands of all time. The Moody Blues themselves, the early lineup, had connections to the Thank You, Darren, wearing that shirt right there. Um, of course, Denny Lane joining Wings, and Mike Pinder played on a couple of tracks on John's Imagine album.
Mhm.
So many great songs that John Lodge wrote with the Moody Blues, of course, being the bass player. Um, you name it, Ride My Seesaw, Isn't Life Strange? I'm Just a Singer in a Rock and Roll Band. I
Mhm.
love the album he made with Justin Hayward, Blue Jays.
Yeah.
Um, a tremendous loss.
He
And
had just released, I believe it's called Love Conquers All, an EP that had I think a couple of new tunes and a couple of remixes of recent stuff. And he was on tour.
I know,
And I should have, and I've seen him before live. I was going to go a couple of months back, and I didn't, and very sad, very talented, incredible bass player and songwriter and singer.
and it's so extremely sad that not only has the original lineup of the Moody Blues, every member has now passed. The only living member left
Well, technically too.
was Justin Hayward.
And Patrick Moraz, the keyboardist
Okay,
who replaced Mike Pinder, is still with us, and that's it.
okay. But our condolences to John Lodge's family. Tremendous loss in the music business. All right, that's all the news I have for you this time.
All right.
Okay. So it's time for a little swirly thing and on to the interview. So, as promised, we're going to be having a chat with Denny Seiwell, the first drummer for Wings, and now the author of a new book, Denny Seiwell, The Best and Worst of Times, written with Robyn Flans. And just out, it's actually out now, right? It's in you
Yes,
can get it. Okay, so just
everything
out,
but in the stores.
hot off the press, and in it, Denny covers, obviously his time with Wings, but also he did quite a lot before he joined Wings, and actually an enormous amount of stuff after he left Wings. And there's also, the personal aspect of overcoming alcoholism and that kind of thing, which is like a battle for anybody who does it. And Denny's come through that, and it's really a great read. So
Thanks, I appreciate that. I've been getting a lot of reports, and then people all seem to like it.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so
Alan, excuse me 1 second. Are you the guy that wrote the book recently?
this one,
Yes.
yes, that's me.
Well, this is maybe the first time I've seen you kind of live on screen anyway. With
Yeah,
what was your partner's
you've
name?
you know you've Excuse me?
You had a partner in that endeavor, the Red Book,
Adrian Sinclair.
Adrian Sinclair, of course.
Yeah. So when we did this, I interviewed you the first time, and then Adrian
Yes.
interviewed you like three or four more times.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you were incredibly helpful, in helping give that book its shape, because that book really pretty much ends when you leave.
Right,
Well, we do the Band on the Run sessions too, but it ends shortly after you leave.
right.
So the whole period we cover is the period you were involved, starting with the Ram sessions. So that was really an incredible time. I mean, I was just sort of writing through it. You were living through it.
And you really did a great timeline of that whole period, day
Thanks.
by day almost. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we worked hard to get as much detail as we could, and it would have been fun having your book before we did it. But, um, but anyway, why don't we start a bit with your uh, prehistory of the Wings era. You were doing all of this session work in New York, and I guess what I hadn't realized that there was also some bouncing around onto the West Coast and various things that you were doing. I think people uh, don't really understand the hectic life of a freelance musician, and certainly a studio musician who, can be called, many times a week, many times a day,
Yeah.
to go in and play sessions. And sometimes you don't even know what you're playing, who the main artist is, or what the finished product is going to be. And so tell us a little bit about what that life is like, the
Well,
ups
it's
and downs.
the good and the bad of it. You didn't know. So that was a challenge. But when you went in and they put a piece of paper in front of you with the chart on it, and they played you the song, and then they wanted the gold, they wanted the goods right away. So if they had 1 to 10 musicians working, they just want to get it done ASAP. So they're saving money. That's why you call a session musician. It's session musician can come in on any type of music and do the job that's necessary. And
Mhm,
once you learn that, then the people, the producers out there understand that you're one of those guys that, or one of those girls that can then give them what they need and quickly.
mhm,
So that was it was great to be. I was just starting out and making my bones in New York City as one of these session guys, where sometimes you do 3 to 5 sessions a day,
mhm,
and you start out with an hour-long session to do a jingle, a TV commercial, whether it be radio or TV, and sometimes you'd be there for 20 minutes, 40 minutes, but you're never there for the whole hour. So you could book 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock
mhm,
and then go have lunch and from 2 to 5 and 7 to 10 you do record dates because record dates came in 3 hour segments.
mhm,
So it was pretty hairy when you had a full day. You really had a full day because at the end of the day, sometimes you go play in the clubs till the wee hours of the morning, and then get up the next day and get to a 9 o'clock session with a little bloodshot eyes and stuff. But in fact, some of the composers of this guy Joe Beck that's in the book, who took me to California the first time, we formed a band out here. But Joe used to write these commercials in the cab on the way to the gig. He'd have an orchestration pad with him, and he'd be writing for a huge orchestra. And diet right cola, da 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 do da do da, and it would be everything from rock and roll to samba to large orchestra uh, to just a violin. Who knows? But that was his job, and he was very successful at it. And when I first came to town, he kind of dug the fact that I was the new hot young heavy breather, with I used
mhm,
to call him. So, and so he helped me get my career started in New York. So
mhm.
working with Joe on his dates and his recommendation really meant a lot to get started in this whirlwind of a business.
Yeah. And you have to develop a versatility to handle just the stuff that you mentioned, the variety of stuff. Um, and that's probably not something everybody can do. I mean, you can be a good
Right.
musician, but be focused on one kind of style.
Yeah.
Uh, but to,
Well, I mean, there was a film composer named Michael Small
Mhm,
in New York, and he called me in to do a session. And I just thought it was another, session, but it was a lot more. It was a film track, a film
mhm,
score.
mhm,
I don't remember what the film, I think the film was called Jenny, actually. That just came back to me right now.
mhm,
This is 55 years ago or more. Anyway, Michael is one of those great composers. And I walked into Columbia 30th Street, I believe the studio was, which was a large room, and there's a whole orchestra in there. And I'm saying, oh, what the hell is this? But thank God that I've had all that kind of classical training. And I finished my career. Well, not finished my career. I shouldn't say that, but that's the last kind of big work that I did out here in LA with just the session guys. That's a 110-piece symphony orchestra
mhm.
doing a lot of film tracks like Waterworld and Atlantis and Perfect Murder and Postman. A lot of the James Newton Howard penned films. He wrote the scores for it. So yeah, it was you didn't know what you were going to work to do, and that was great. I just loved that challenge because
Mhm.
I was kind of okay with it with all of it. I made a record with Astrid Gilberto, and
Right.
that was Gilberto with Turrentine. I can't remember the title of it, but it's pretty easily
You
found.
toured with her too, didn't you?
Pardon?
I think you toured with her too, didn't you?
I did. I went to
Yeah.
you to I did some dates in the US with her, and we did some tour of 1 month tour of Japan in
Right.
Nice.
1970 during Expo 70. So we hit all the major cities in Japan.
So
And
the
Charlie and Brett,
situation, the situation with, well, it wasn't Wings yet, but with Ram was really different from what you're describing because he
oh
wanted you for 6 weeks.
yeah. Well, that was the first part. That was not the best part. That was yeah, it was a okay, I don't have to take any jingles for a while, but you never know what you could make an hour on a jingle. You could make, 15, $20,000.
Mhm,
So I didn't know that Paul was going to pay us double or triple scale or whatever he paid us. I don't know. We were getting more than we should have though, or
mhm,
more than the norm, I should say. But he booked us. He said, "Don't take any work for 6 weeks. Let's go in and do this album." And we actually cut 23 tracks
yeah.
during that period. And a lot of the tracks came out later on different albums or different releases.
Flip
But
sides of
yeah,
singles.
well, the best part about it was the first song that we did, which was Another Day.
Right.
It was Spinoza. He was the first guitar player called in.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And Spinoza and I, Paul would come in and just play the song to you. And I went, oh, hold it. He just went from 4 to 3. So he went from a 4/4 time to a waltz, a 3/4 time.
Mhm.
Right from and Spinoza and I looked at each other. Oh, this is going to be great. This is going to be fun. And then we couldn't wait to get to work. The first day just told it all. And
Because
then,
unless you're playing with King Crimson, rock things don't tend to switch that much.
yeah, right, right, right. Well, that's the Joe Beck band with Roger Calloway, Tom Scott, and Chuck DeMonico back in that was 1968 or 9. Uh, we did odd time stuff, boom, bam, boom, 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 bam, all kind of 7/8 and odd times because they were all working with Don Ellis doing the all the odd time stuff in his big band. So
Mhm.
we were way like 30 years ahead of our time with that band.
Mhm.
It was
Mhm.
great that we didn't really, unfortunately, we didn't get a good representative recording of that band. We did a couple of film tracks in
Mhm.
LA, but yeah, that band was pretty special. And they all went on. Well, Roger Calloway left the band first because he was commissioned to write a ballet, the
Mhm.
Balanchine Ballet. So he wrote a ballet and he said, "Sorry guys, I got to go. I got a commission to do this, so I've got to do it."
Mhm.
But we connected years later. I was producing an album in Chicago, a young artist named, well, he shall remain nameless, but Clive Davis signed him, and we needed a really hairy string section to play on this one track, and I thought of Roger Kellaway immediately, so he penned that orchestration of that song anyway. So yeah, it all works out great.
Mhm. Of all the stuff you did in Wings, just sort of skipping ahead a bit because, we could take the whole time to talk just about the earliest sessions. But of the whole period, um, there were so many great things that you worked on and some things you contributed to, like Little Lamb Dragonfly. Are there certain tracks that stand out for you as the best of the things that you did?
Not, maybe not the best, but most interesting, like Strange. Geez, Mickey and Sylvia, or is it Ian and Sylvia? Love is Strange.
Mickey and Sylvia. Love is
Mickey,
strange.
What is that?
Love is strange.
Yeah,
It's Mickey and
Mickey.
Sylvia.
Mickey and Sylvia.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
so they wanted to do a version of that, and we were like the first white pop reggae group to attempt reggae. But Paul and Linda, between Ram and Wings, they'd spent a little time in Jamaica and came up to see us in New York and brought all these records along. They were over the moon with reggae.
Right.
Hmm.
So you'll see reggae turned up in Live and Let Die. We did Sea Moon. We did Seaside Woman, Linda's first song.
Mhm.
And so I get a lot of emails about how'd you come up with that drum part? And I said, I don't know. I had no idea. I mean, it was just my vain attempt at doing a reggae beat, which is just kind of everything flopped around backwards. The bass drum would go on two and four rather than one and three, and then you adjust. And so it was a lot of fun, but there were so many great tracks there that, this morning I just got up and I had a little time I was listening to some tracks that I have to record next week. And so I was on the computer already, so Wildlife popped up, and I listened to Tomorrow and Some People Never Know, and a couple of those from that first record, and there's some tremendous artistic playing on those tracks, and
Mhm.
people kind of just missed a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
The band was so new, and five of the eight tracks on that album were first takes. We
Mhm.
didn't fool around. And then, well, Paul would get in and work his magic on it when
Mhm.
the band was, but most of the time we were all there for everything, including mixes. And I used to help with the vocals, all right, guys, I'd be up in the studio. They'd be out, or up in the control room. They'd be down in the studio. Gather around the mic. Let's get a blend. Okay, Denny, we need you closer. We need Linda. We need back. Blah, blah. So, it was all hands on, and when we were mixing, you had your fader assignments, and
Mhm.
if one of you blew your assignment, we'd have to do another take on the mix.
Mhm.
So it was really, and Ram, I'm sorry to say this, but Ram just opened the door for me. Paul never asked me to do anything special except one time on Uncle Albert. Can you find a part that doesn't just a constant drumming through the vocals and the verses? And I went,
Mhm.
oh yeah, I think so. So anyway, I found this part that really worked beautiful, which opened the door. So I really had free reign to do whatever I heard. And if he didn't like it, well, he never told me. He just let me work it out and find a way that I could make it fit the song and work for the song.
Yeah, I think he would have told you if he didn't like it.
I think so too.
So you've been on the show before, and you know what we do is we sort of take turns, and so
Right,
I'll
right.
pass you over to Ken now, and possibly come back again, depending how it goes.
Very good. Thanks, Alan.
Okay. Okay, Denny. The great thing about learning about you and your career is how versatile you are in so many different styles of music. And so much of that was before you even joined Wings. Did you ever talk to Paul about your background of everything that you were doing? Because I would have thought that would have really impressed him, considering the fact he's one of the most versatile artists we've ever had in music.
Yeah.
And
I know, but I didn't really talk to him. I think he found that out during Ram.
hmm,
He found out that In fact, in the book, he talks about why he selected me out of the herd. And he said, I gave Denny the same thing I gave to everybody else, but Denny just handled it all very well. And I liked the way he handled everything. He was very versatile. And so he talks about that in the very last chapter in the book. He did an interview with my co-author, Robyn Flans, and it's Q&A. She'd ask him the question, he'd give an answer. And it was really quite nice. And he's done this for me before. I did another, I think it was called The Classic Drummer, and he did an interview with a fellow by the name of Bob Gerard, and he did it in the back seat of a car. He was going someplace, and he gave Bob a 20-minute interview, and so he's very generous with his time, and yeah, I probably got off the question there. I'm trying to remember names.
No, that's fine. I'm always curious about doing session work and all, but since David Spinoza was on Ram and he was a big session player, as was Hugh McCracken, did you know those guys before
Oh,
doing?
sure, sure. We did a lot of sessions together. I was in two different rhythm sections. One would be Kenny Asher, Bob, no, no, Don Payne on bass, Kenny Asher on keyboards, and Spinoza. That was one rhythm section that I worked with quite a bit, and the other was a, a rhythm section with Hugh McCracken. Uh, there were Pat Rebelo on organ or keyboards, and I don't remember who the bass player was for that, but it was probably Russell George or something like that. But so I'd seen these guys on sessions, and when Paul, you know, Spinoza is quite the card. I mean, uh, he could be caught going into the studio to hear a playback and goosing Paul or something like that. He was really loose. He didn't care how big the stars they were. He had fun on the sessions, and it was a little, Paul didn't know quite how to handle him. He was loose, but a great, great, great player. But one day he asked to leave a little early if he could. He said, I have something to do. Could you excuse me a little early today? And afterwards, Paul said, yeah, go ahead. And so afterwards, Paul said to me, can you recommend another guitar player for this? So I said, well, I work a lot with this guy, Hugh McCracken, who's wonderful. And I think he liked the Scottish name and everything. And he knew of his playing. So he brought Hugh in, and we redid like Uncle Albert was done with originally with Spinoza, and then he brought Hugh in,
Hmm.
and we redid it with him. But yeah, Spinoza played on quite a few of the beginning tracks of the album. I couldn't begin to tell you which ones exactly, but yeah, it was just a great experience.
Yeah. Didn't Hugh come up with the guitar lines in Uncle Albert where it's instrumental and you hear like the thunder and the rain and all that, the notes da da da.
Probably. Yeah, probably. Yeah. The last time I saw Hugh, we were in New York and we went up to his apartment to just have a hang. And we were waiting for his wife to come in. And he just went over to the record player, to the stereo, and started playing Ram and picked up his acoustic guitar. And there he was playing all those parts. Man, it broke my heart. It was so beautiful. It was like we were in there doing them that afternoon or something, 50 years later. And I really miss Huey. He was a man of very few words, but boy, he carried a big musical stick. I mean, his parts were very, very memorable and so right for the song. And I'm glad that he had a good career and a good wife and kids and everything. That's the reason why he didn't jump at the opportunity of joining a band with Paul, because he had a prior marriage in the States and he had young kids. He didn't want to miss their growing on their childhood. And Paul didn't know that for many years. And I saw Hugh that time of seeing Hugh just before he passed. He said, well, do you know why I didn't jump at the opportunity? And I said, no, why? And then he explained it to me. And I told Paul about that. Wow, that lightened the load big time. So he was really glad to know that.
I also heard that he loved being a session player. He loved the life of
Oh
that.
yeah.
And he didn't want to leave that. and travel all over the world.
That too, but mainly, I think it was the kids mainly.
Okay.
Yeah,
You and I have talked a lot through the years, and I've always defended Wings as a band, a group
yes.
effort all around. And can you give examples of how, well, in particular with Henry, other than My Love, which we all know about, the great solo from My Love, when he would come up with ideas as a guitar player and Paul would accept it, because there are a lot of people who would think, well, Paul would dictate exactly what he wanted on certain songs. Or was it a mixture of both with Paul?
No, no, it was nothing like that. When you're a band, you're a band. You contribute. Paul was not a dictator. I don't even like using that word right now with what's going on. But, he did not tell you what to play. He might suggest that you find something other than what you're playing for a certain section of the song. But Henry was the last member. After Wildlife was finished, and we got Henry to join the band so we could play live a little bit easier. He just came up with very unique parts, and Paul was quite a he had quite a unique look himself at guitar parts, like on Wildlife. He did a lot of those really wild guitar parts and simple, but where do they come from? Where did this guy bring that information from?
Hmm.
So Henry just fit in the band in a very nice way, and I don't ever remember him saying, uh, "Try this or try that," and showing them a lick. Or that wasn't part of it. It was he opened the door to explore the music, and that was, in fact, one of the best things that Paul said. We were mixing and we heard a mistake. Somebody heard, "Oh, well, that's the wrong note there." And he said, "Well, let's see. Let's play it again." And then he played it again. He said, "Let's double track it." Okay, let's triple track it. So we triple tracked the accident. He said, "Let's explore the accident, not correct the mistake."
Hmm.
And it turned out to be the best part of the song after a while. So
Remember what song that was?
I don't know.
Oh, interesting. I bring this up because you've heard through the years that Paul knows exactly what he wants in a song.
Yeah,
And I know from talking to other members of Wings through the years, especially Lawrence Juber, he would say there were times when he knew what he wanted from a guitar player or a drummer, but if anybody had a better idea, he accepted it.
well, it wasn't the case with me. It just wasn't. I'm sorry, but
Hmm.
Ram was you know, he, the English musicians always thought the grass is greener in New York, and with the New Yorkers thought the grass is greener in England. So he knew he was working with top-notch pros for the
Oh,
Ram album, and he just carried that over, even though Wings wasn't top-notch pro session players. I had to put on a different head. I had to take the session player head and move that over to a band member. And it was just a vibe that came along with being a band member. And that's why I don't think there was that much, if anything, that I can seriously remember about him saying, "Oh no, that part doesn't work." The worst would happen was, "Well, let's see if we can find something else for that section that's not grooving the way it should or whatever." So it was a really beautiful, man. He handled himself so beautifully in the creative situation.
hmm. So he was very diplomatic in that regard.
Oh yeah, he wasn't the band leader. He in fact, in the beginning, it was Wings, not Paul McCartney and Wings.
Right.
The only reason it changed to Paul McCartney and Wings a couple records later was, you know, for the promoters, so we sell more tickets when we played live. And they tried to get him to do that right off the bat, and he said, "No, we're going to give the world a real, true look at a brand new band like the Beatles was. We're going
Right.
to pay our dues. We're going to pay the dues."
And I always remember through the years of all the different lineups of Wings, there were interviews where Paul made sure that every member was asked a question. So it wasn't just about him or him and Linda.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, those other iterations of Wings were not as good as the first one.
Okay.
We were in the
We all we all have our opinions. I
we
love all of them.
we had fun like the other bands did not have. There was a comradeship that came along with the initiating that band and having that Beatles thing looming over you and going out on the road without a gig or a hotel booked. Uh, there was something very, very special about that. And I don't believe that the other bands experienced what we did or had as much fun. And Paul kind of seconded that few times that I talked to him about years later.
Well, there's a big difference between being in the first band and building up the band from
Yeah,
scratch. And
yeah.
then by the time you had the next lineup, they were already established, so they could book stadium shows and all of that. So, before I pass you over to Darren, I want to mention because there's so much that I learned in the McCartney legacy that I want to ask you. But one thing that stands out is that the song Hi, Hi, Hi seemed to be a very difficult song for the band to do because Paul was never happy with the results and he did a lot of different takes of it. Do you remember any of that?
No,
Because Alan, don't you remember bringing that up in the book?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
I
he
don't
tried
know.
to for a while he tried to use a live take from the 72 European tour and then that didn't work and trying to overdub onto it and then he
I
didn't
didn't
like
know that.
that. So then
Wow.
you went into the studio and did a full studio version. It was and there were, I think, a number of tracks like that where it was just hard for him to find what he was really satisfied with. So you all had to, sort of keep doing it.
Geez, I don't remember that because there were times like Get on the Right Thing and Little Lamb Dragonfly and I Lie Around, stuff that was recorded with Ram that
Right.
came out later. But
Hmm.
I don't remember Hi, Hi, Hi. The only thing I remember about Hi, Hi, Hi is that stupid woman, Mary Whitehouse, that banned the records because it had sexual and drug connotations.
Hmm.
Right.
And she didn't even listen to the lyrics. It didn't say, I want to shoot you with my body gun. It said, I want to shoot you with my polygon. And high, high, high means elevated of spirit,
Sure.
not drug high. She
Of
missed the
course
whole
not.
point of that thing. And I don't know if she did us a favor or not, but I believe that I didn't know that he'd gone with some live takes. I really thought that we just nailed it, and that was the one that came out. But it's a very good take of the band. I remember we
I love
had tough times rehearsing it to get it to work because of the tempo increase at the very end. But
it. Okay. I'll pass you on to Darren.
Thank you, Ken.
thanks, guys.
So Denny, let's go back. We've sort of touched on this time period. We kind of just were touching on this time period, the very, very beginnings of Wings. Talk about those first jams, because we know that you worked on Ram. Paul asked you to join Wings. You accepted. Eventually, Denny Lane came into the picture. And Paul said, "Hey, why don't you come down to our farm in Scotland and we have a studio and talk about those first sessions and give us a little description of Rude Studio. How
Rude
rude was
studio,
that
yeah.
studio?"
Well, it was a lean-to on off the barn. The house was tiny. It just had two bedrooms and a kitchen, and that was it. There were no what's the word I'm looking for? But it wasn't very fancy, put it that way. And and Linda, I mean, she was a great cook. They weren't vegetarian yet. That came a little bit later, but the kids, then they had a couple of Lucky and a dog, a Dalmatian, and Martha, the sheepdog. Then they
Come
had a
on.
bunch of horses. They had Drake's Drum and Honor and Cinnamon. The kids had a horse, and they had all these horses. Some were retired race horses that they just wanted to give a good retirement to, and then they had some sheep on their farm. So the farmhouse was a small house, and this is like a garage or a lean-to off the house, and they had Dick Swetnam's 4-track in there that he used on the McCartney album. Dick Swetnam, I think it's pronounced. But we just got in there and knocked around. This set of drums here behind me is the one that Paul asked me to bring some drums along when you come over to Scotland. And I didn't know they had Ringo's set in there. Ringo loaned them the original set that they sold for 2 million or something like that to years later, but the drums were scattered all over the barn and stuff, and they didn't have all the parts for there and everything. So, but we played with those, and then I had these with me, and they showed up down at the studio in Abbey Road, and these played on some of the original tracks, with the early stuff with Wings. Whether I used all of them or some of them, but it's a great little set. It's a 1964 set of Gretsch that I actually took on fiber cases and took on the plane with me from New York to Scotland. And when I got there, the customs people said, "Oh no, here's another one of those crazy Beatle people that's going to go up and disturb Mr. McCartney." So they weren't going to let me in, and finally I had to call. I said, "Why don't you call him? He invited us." So he gave him the number. They called. He goes, "Oh yeah, I invited him. He's got drums. Yeah, fine. Send him in. We're waiting for him." So Paul sent a van, and we that was it.
Do you remember I'm sure they were jams, maybe you don't really remember the first song that you guys played together,
Nah.
in those first
It was
days.
probably
Yeah.
an old Buddy Holly or something. I don't know. We were just feeling each other out because we went back to New York after Hugh McCracken opted out from the invite. So we were back in New York just a couple of weeks, I believe. Allan knows better than I do, but I believe we were only there for a couple of weeks, and then he called me up and he said, "I got Denny Lane coming over, so we can just go ahead with the band now." So that was it, man. I sold everything. I had my apartment, and I sold everything to another drummer that was coming up in the studios. Gave him a lot of my jingle contacts, and I was Rick Marotta, by the way. And
Wow.
so TV, stereo, television, Wurlitzer piano, all of that stuff, designer furniture.
Nice.
That was a mistake. I should have, but I should have hung on to that place. It was great. Anyway, we got over there, and we started rehearsing with Denny, and
Right.
Paul had written some songs. And that's when we got the surprise that Linda was going to be the piano player, because I had recommended a fellow named Paul Harris to him. Paul played with Manassas and John Sebastian and another session buddy of mine from New York, great piano player. So, but he said, no, I think Linda can do what we're going to need. He really had an idea in his head about taking this right down to nothing again, building it up like the Beatles. So he said, I can teach her everything she needs to know. And I'll be damned. He was right. He really did. By the end there, she was doing a great job, and you didn't have to pay her. But yeah, that was so there, I don't remember what songs we would have jammed on, but it wasn't anything special. Then in no time at all, there was a few songs that he'd written that we just, tomorrow and some people never know, and some other stuff that wasn't on Ram. That he would just show us a couple of tunes so we had something to do when we got down to Abbey Road. And as I said before, 5 of the 8 tracks on Abbey Road were first takes. So we kind of knew the songs, but they weren't over rehearsed yet.
Mhm. Did Hugh McCracken ever over to England, or did he turn down the offer right away, or were there any very early jams with Hugh involved that would be considered wings?
Well, yeah, the first time we went up to the farm, it was Hugh and I,
Hugh
and
was okay.
his wife Holly was with him, and Monique was with me. We went up to the farm, and we had a cup of tea, had a few laughs and stuff, and Paul would show us the standing stone and the sheeps and all that, and we'd probably go out into Rude and just play a little bit, but it wasn't memorable. I don't remember
Mhm.
what it was.
Right, okay.
And then
And
he
at what
left.
point? I'm sorry.
He left right
Right.
after that. The second day that he said that's the day that would have been great if I could remember. He said, "Come on back and let's leave the wives down at the hotel today, so maybe we can do some rehearsing and not be interrupted." So that didn't go down too well with the wives, but you know, we did. And that day we did play a little bit, the four of us, and I
Mhm.
don't remember much about that either. It was all
Okay. And did you hit it off with Denny Lane right away?
not right away. No,
No.
The English, the Brits, should I call them? They're a little conservative. It took a little while, but we uh, we grew into it. We had him stay
Mhm.
up at our farm we had a different farm that Paul lived in. We rented a place up there. The Breckaheath Farm, Kilkenzie by Campbelltown. And it was beautiful. We had a view of the ocean and we could see into Northern Ireland at night.
Mm.
So we had rooms, so we had three bedrooms and we could have Denny and Henry would stay up there every once in a while. The roadies would stay there. So
So I guess Paul had a date set that we're going to go into Abbey Road on this date. So you rehearsed up to that point, or was it I think we're ready to go now. Let me ring up the guys at Abbey Road and say
that I
we're
don't,
coming down.
yeah, that I don't know.
Mm.
It could have been either one of those, so because we didn't have enough, but we had enough to start on.
Right.
Because, like,
Oh,
for example, just to clarify, the track Mumbo, that was a jam. So
right.
we're just in the studio jamming, and all of a sudden we're making up a tune, like all slapping lyrics on it. And he says to Tony, the engineer, he said,
Yeah.
"Take it, Tony." And you can hear the machines turn on, and we're recording. So there were a few like that, actually. And, at that point, Paul always thought that we had to come up with some rock and roll. So we
Mhm.
had to have some more stuff other than the McCartney-esque Bluebird and Blackbird or that
Right.
kind of material.
Did Paul go into the sessions saying, let's do this quick, let's do this, or was that just after like a few days of recording,
No,
we're done?
no, no. We did the tracks. They just came quick, and it
Right.
was like, wow, that's a good track. Let's move on. We're not going to make that any better. Some people just record 50 tracks or 50 takes when the first take might have a mistake in it, but the second take was it. And then they just kept going and going, and just it keeps getting worse and worse. He had the sense to realize these tracks are good. We can work with these tracks. You embellish them a little, you put some overdubs on them, and that's what we did. So the five of the eight songs were first takes. Now we got within the weekend, we got all the tracks done, and then he'd just go in and start overdubbing so you get some ideas. What will make this song better? What ties it together? And we start doing the vocals and doing the backgrounds and guitar solo here and there. And then I put cornet on Sea Moon, for example, and
Mhm.
put it on something else too. I don't remember what it was, but we put little
Single pigeon.
percussion overdubs on. Which one?
Single pigeon.
Single pigeons. Yeah,
Mm.
I remember yeah. So marimba, we put the all of that stuff. We just
Yeah.
and the EMI had Abbey Road had a beautiful locker there with a lot of percussion effects in it, and that was great.
Um,
Dip into that. Go ahead,
I
Darren.
always I always felt that the album McCartney was sort of the meant to be the exact opposite of the finished, polished gem that Abbey Road was. And McCartney comes out as this very DIY project. And to an extent, I always thought the same thing with Wildlife, that
Yeah,
Paul left it as is in many places, instead of spending a lot of time
right.
polishing it up. And that's why I said, did Paul go in with that intent that we're going to do this record fast, and what we get in this X number of days, we go with?
No, I don't think so. I
No.
really don't. I really think that he wanted to give an honest look to the world of a new band that wasn't the Beatles. And he wanted to say, okay, this is what it is. It's going to be my songs.
Right.
So everybody knows what to expect from his work, from his
Right.
song. But the band is going to just be this new band that's presenting his songs on a
Yeah.
different format.
When did the discussion start that you needed a fifth member? You need a lead guitarist here. We're going to go on the road.
Yeah.
We should have someone else here.
Well, that was right after Wildlife was recorded. Then we talked about taking it on the road. There's nothing like taking it on the road. So Paul's idea was to go unannounced, get in the van, but we needed a fifth member. Someone, when Danny was playing rhythm, we needed somebody to take the guitar solos. So we were rehearsing at this place that we called it the Duke of York Steps. It was one of those government buildings that had a little theater in it in London, and it was really a nice little theater. And so the roadies, Ian and Trevor, knew this guy Henry McCulloch, who was playing with the Grease band.
Right.
Darren knows guys. They did Woodstock with Joe Cocker, and they were quite a good band. And Henry was, he was like the Jimi Hendrix of Ireland. He was the first guy that brought an electric guitar into the Irish show bands. So he was really cheeky and he, shoeless, walking along the beach. And, he was just a very unique character. And he was called in. And so first day he came in, he started just playing the stuff that we were rehearsing. And everybody looked at each other like, wow, this guy's great. He really is perfect for that. He fit personality and musically, he fit with the band. So he was added in so we could go on tour. And
Right.
hence the university tour happened right after that.
Right. Interesting decision on Paul's part for the first single from his new band to be something that was maybe un-McCartney-esque, a protest song, a politically driven song. Talk about Give Ireland Back to the Irish coming
Right.
into the picture weeks after Wildlife comes out.
Yeah. Well, he didn't want to make he said it all the time. That he didn't want to make a social statement or but he had to do something. So 13 bodies in the street, and the British government and everything. He said, "I'm not too proud of my government right now," and so he wrote a song, and Henry's heart was very heavy. Henry lived in Northern Ireland. He's from Northern Ireland,
Mhm.
and had some brothers that every time they told him, "Don't come home, man. We're going to shoot you." So it was really sad that it was going on for the 800 years or something like that. So we did our best to just make that protest song mean something. The lyrics, well, Paul took care of that. I mean, but we all just it was Paul called us up to the house, just like Live and Let Die. We had our gear up there, and we started rehearsing, and we knocked the song into shape. And a few days later, I guess a film crew from Channel 7 in the States here came over, and they did a film about us putting that song out. And it was banned in Britain, I believe.
Yeah.
And but it did quite well here in the United States. People wanted to know about it and why we would do a protest song like that. So I'm glad we did it. So's everybody.
Mhm. We'll go back to Allan.
On the university tour, I, I I think some of the students sort of took the song in the wrong way because you're touring not in Ireland, you're touring in Britain, and there were some instances where I think people came up to Paul and said, "So are you in favor of the IRA now?" Which wasn't what he was doing, but it was, I think, just sort of misunderstood in England because it was I guess a tense situation.
Yeah, I
So
never saw that.
yeah.
That could have happened, when I wasn't around, or if they caught
Mm.
Paul at an unguarded moment or something like that. But for the most part, we were just received gloriously, man. They paid 75 pence or something to get in to see
Right.
Paul McCartney and his new band play. And
Hmm.
we didn't have enough songs. In fact, we repeated Give Ireland Back to the Irish twice just to fill in the set. We didn't have enough material.
Yeah.
But it was
It
good
was the
for
new
all of us.
single.
It really, Pardon?
because it was the new single.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, there were only a couple of those shows recordings have gotten out on just two, Hull and Nottingham, the first one. And it is kind of interesting that, you're throwing in some Henry Has a Blues
Right.
instrumental, and you would do these sort of folksy little things like the Duke of York or Turkey in the Straw, or
Right.
which
Yeah. Yeah.
also a bit in the '72 European tour. Some of those things remain too.
Right.
It's kind of interesting, not just playing the album, uh,
Right.
just
Well, the behind that is there was no Beatles music. We
That's
did
it.
not
Yeah, I was just
do
going to
any
say,
Beatles
yeah.
stuff. It
Mhm.
was he never brought it into the Wings camp at all, so we didn't know what was going on there, other than that we couldn't make up an agreement that we could put in writing because of the Apple court case. So that was the elephant in the room that kind of loomed over everything.
yeah.
And, and apparently,
Alan, can I jump in here 1 second? Because I was going to ask, well, you might not have been privy to specifics. You probably were around Paul when he wasn't in the best mood,
yeah,
because of what was happening with Apple. Um, did he, maybe out of frustration or just in a down moment ever to kind of talk to you guys and say, I can't believe this is happening, and
no,
he kept it separate. He
he
kept it
really kept it.
totally out of the band.
He really guarded that to himself. You could tell that he was going through something.
Yeah.
Uh, we couldn't be sure what it was at the time, and he
If
never
if
really opened up and said what it was.
and if he had said, "Hey, you all right? You want to talk about it?" He wouldn't come forth with anything.
Well, we didn't do that. I don't know.
Okay, there you
Yeah.
go. Okay, back to Alan.
Okay. Um, let's move on to the Red Rose Speedway sessions. And you talk in the book about how Glyn Johns had this special way of miking drums, which is actually, really one of the things he's famous for. Is he
Yeah.
he had a special drum sound, and you describe the three-way, three-point
Yeah.
mic
Right.
setup. But those sessions, I think there was also a lot of friction between Glyn and either Paul or Glyn and the band.
That's another thing that we weren't privy to because I don't know, most sessions that we did, we'd spend as much time in the booth in the control room as we did in the studio.
Mm,
But with Glenn there, I don't remember going into the booth very much. And so there was something there from the past that I wasn't aware of. I didn't know where it came from. But it's just like one day, that was the end of Glenn.
yeah.
And I don't think there was any animosity or hard feelings. It just wasn't working out. And
Well, I think Glyn was kind of critical of what the band was doing because you were doing some experimenting in the studio with things like loop.
yeah,
And he just couldn't get behind that. And then also Mary Had a Little Lamb. That was when he finally left. Um, and he felt guilty and came back over the weekend and made a remix of it, even though he had
okay.
already quit. But that was, I think he felt that he was used to, he had just been producing the Eagles, who were new, and other groups that came into the studio with the songs all written and rehearsed and focused. And that really wasn't Paul's way of working at that time. You'd go in and let's do this, let's try this. Here's a synthesizer, let's see what we can do. And I think Lynn had a problem with that.
Could
But
be. Yeah, you're probably right. But for Glenn's part, I got to say it's the best drum sound I've ever had.
yeah, that's in a way why I was asking, because whatever friction there would have been with the band, you were benefiting from that Glenn drum sound that's so famous.
And the experimentation that you brought up. I mean, like for example, Sea Moon. like we were just hanging out in the studio. If we were in New York and we're spending studio time, it would have been work, 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 work. But we had some time to relax and fool around. And so Henry got behind my drums when we started doing Sea Moon. Paul started playing. I think he played the piano on Sea Moon
Mhm.
and singing Sea Moon. And Henry sat down behind my drums. So I picked up Paul's bass. I don't know how to play bass. It buzzes and everything. Paul replaced the bass part immediately, but Henry was playing something that I never would have thought of, and that was the drum part that was used on the record.
Mm.
It was so perfect. A drummer would not have thought to play that. And Paul used to get behind the drums. Whenever I'd get off the drums, he'd jump in and start playing. So, hey guys, I got my set. I want to get back to work here. But yeah, everybody loved to play the drums. So
Mhm.
anyway, that experimentation was really nice. And like Mama's Little Girl, we rented some African drums, and we just played. We made stuff up and fooled around with different things. And Glenn was I didn't know that he wasn't liking that. I mean, I just thought that that would be a lot of fun for an engineer to make the
Mm.
best of that kind of a situation.
Yeah. Um, One thing that you get into in the book that I hadn't realized is that after you left, you were actually in touch with Paul more than I realized. That you went, that dinner with Steve Stills in '75, and
Yep.
you
Yep.
know, and then various other times, and that like now you're back on, just back to
Constantly.
normal, right? You're
Yeah.
pals.
Oh, I butt dialed him the other day. He said, "Did you butt dial me?" I said, "Yeah, I did. Sorry." He said, "That's fine. It's Tuesday. I got the day off." So we talked for 20 minutes, so
Mhm.
maybe more. But yeah, he contacted me years ago, and I just kept his cell phone number. So whenever I need something, I'll text him or I'll give him a call if I don't want to text you about this. I'd like to talk about something.
Mhm.
And one of those times was after Denny passed. And then
Sure.
I think we got closer. Uh, that's a funny song, Getting Closer. But when he passed, Paul realized that we're both in our 80s, and he and I are the only two left from the first group. And
That's true. Yeah.
so, yeah, he's a
There
year
was
older than me. I'll have you know.
There was a post someone put on Facebook with a picture of you and Paul, and I think the guy who posted it was saying that you had heard some of Paul's next album. So I was just wondering what you can tell us about that.
It was great. It was really great. I teased with him all the time. It was down at one of the studios here in LA. He invited us down to hear some of the new tracks, and the producer Andrew Watt was there, and an engineer, and Monique and I. So we were at the one end of the board, and they were at the other. Paul and Monique and I were down at the one end, and he started playing this. He played a couple tracks to us that were just gorgeous, and he played drums, plays all the instruments, and very carefully designed parts, a true Paul McCartney miracle. And this one track was just very nostalgic, and so he's looking down at Monique, and she's kind of got tears in her eyes. And then he looks over at me, and I'm starting to well up. Then he wells up, and the three of us have a big group hug. And Andrew's over there saying, "Holy shit! This is history. I'm witnessing history here." It was funny, but and then we alluded to that in several texts later on. I said, "No tears after this one." And then he invited us up to the rehearsal studio before the South American leg, and we just went up there and hung. Did I tell you this story already
No.
today? I've
No.
told it so many damn times. He invited us up to he used to rehearse at a place up near the Burbank airport, and so we go up there and we're having lunch and we're talking about the old days. Paul and I are telling stories in front of Rusty and Brian and Wicks and Abe Jr. They're all eating it up like the original stories of the band because they've been with them 23 years.
Yeah.
nobody else had that kind of time, not even the Beatles, you know.
Right.
So they're having a ball just listening to us recount those old times, and then they went back to work, and Abe takes me up on the stage to check out my new drums. They're all metal. They're beautiful DW drums. So I start playing. I tap around and just see what they sound like. You know, they're huge. And Paul straps on a bass. He hears me playing. He comes over right in front of me, and we start jamming.
Mm.
So you could tell the magic was there 50 years, 50 some years later. And so
Yeah.
we jammed for a minute. The band jumped in, and then he said, "Hey, Dan, do you remember how to play Live and Let Die?" I said, "I can play it in my sleep." So he said, let's go, guys. So I was already on the drums. He moves over to the piano and he kicks it off. And they were just rehearsing it for the tour anyway. And so my wife whips out the iPhone and just filmed the whole thing.
Wow.
It's one of my treasures. I mean, when I left the band, that was the one thing that snagged me the most. I could have changed my mind at the last minute, just knowing that I'd never get to play with that man again, you know, that genius. And we had such a great working relationship. So here it was. It was all. It was like those 50 years didn't exist.
Hmm.
And in the book, there's a chapter at the very end of the book where he's interviewed by my co-author, and she's asking him about that time that we played Live and Let Die together. And he says, "Yeah, we weren't sure, you know, if Denny remembered it or if he was too rusty. It's a hard part for a drummer to play. There's a lot of movements in there and everything. And I'll be damned if Denny didn't play it better than he ever played it in his life. And it was just great, and I loved it. And it was, you know, so I was really thrilled about that. So that is one of my treasures.
He should get you back for a couple of
Yeah.
tracks in the studio.
Well,
Um,
I agree. However, tracks in the studio. That's why I teased down at the when I was listening to the solo albums. I said, you know, I still do sessions. You know, I'll come down and just put some demo stuff, drums down for you if you want. You know, I'll do it for free too. And he said, that's not a bad idea. But people always say to me, it'd be nice for the fans if you could jump up on one of the big shows and do Live and Let Die. But I think with all the, I'd probably have a heart attack with those explosions, you know, but. Uh, yeah, I think with all the explosions, there's so many cues there that tempos that have to be met, and they're working on and off of a click and stuff. It might be a little risky. He couldn't risk something like that, even though I play the original drum part in the way
Hmm.
it was played on the record.
mhm,
It's evolved since then. So
mhm.
anyway, I understand that why that could not happen, but other things could happen.
There's a funny story in the book about, I guess it must have been the Amoeba concert in LA,
Oh yeah.
when you were standing there with Ringo and you say to Ringo, "Well, why don't you get up there and
No,
play?"
I
And
said to him, they played something that Ringo was really famous for. I don't remember the song, but I said, "Why ain't you up there?" You know, he said, "I don't know." And so 5 minutes later, they played a Wing song that I'm really known for, and Ringo said, "How come you ain't up there?" The fans would have gone crazy, I'm sure of that. But
yeah, yeah,
Oh yeah.
absolutely. And then he put that out as a record too, so that would have been a cool thing.
yeah, yeah.
Um, how often are you in touch with him these days?
Oh, at least once a week, if not more.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, I let him alone this since he left on this last tour. But I got him the Tuesday before he played Santa Barbara,
Hmm.
and then he went from there to the Palm Desert. Then they went to Vegas. So I've given him a little breather for those 3 or 4. I just didn't want to bother him, you know.
Sure.
But I'm sure if I text him right now, he'd get right back to me. That's the way. If I catch him when they're not supposed to be on stage, he'll get right back to me. You know, and there's a lot of downtime when you're on the road, when you're just traveling although he travels pretty well, I think. I mean, I'm not sure, but yeah, there's a lot of downtime. It's not all of it. It's cracked up to be working on the road. But
Mhm.
when you get on stage and the feedback you get from the audience, that's worth every second of it.
Sure. And you
That's what
had
he
some
does.
downtime on a bus that was going 35 miles an hour.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. So there were a couple of days, like if you had 150, 200 miles between gigs,
Yeah.
the other end where you were going would send these lime green BMWs out to the freeway to meet the bus. And they'd take you, we'd have five lime green BMWs, brand new. We'd each one of us would have a BMW limo, and we'd go 130 miles an hour back to the city where they came from so we could make the showtime.
Ah, yeah, those were the days.
Yeah.
So back to Ken, I guess.
Before we go to Ken, I was just thinking, Denny, you should shoot Paul a text right now and say, "Hey, I'm hanging out with these three guys doing a show. You want to say hi?"
And he'd say,
Anyway,
Yeah,
who?
right.
let her
Uh,
rip, Ken.
Backtracking just a little bit concerning the Wildlife album. The story I've always heard is that Paul was influenced by the fact that Bob Dylan had recorded an album in a couple of weeks, Nashville Skyline, and he wanted to do the same thing and record quickly. Did you ever hear Paul talk about that with the band or anything like that?
No, no, don't
Okay.
believe everything you hear. And I love
Must have
Dylan.
been New
I'd like to
Morning.
say yes, but I worked with Dylan for a hot minute. I was going to do his 1978 tour. He couldn't find a drummer that the band was happy with and he was happy with, so he talked me into coming down and I auditioned and he said the band went, "Yeah, get this guy, he's the best." And so he said, "Well, bring your passport down the next day and so we can get your visas set up to some Japan and Australia and all that." I said, "Okay, I really don't want to go, but for you, I'll do anything." So I was hooked up pretty good with Rick Danko and the guys from the band. That was another part of my history. But I brought my passport in and went to the rehearsal the following day, and they said, Bob says, somebody there said, well, the business people said they can't get you into Japan or Australia because of the drug bust you had with McCartney in Sweden. And so
Well,
I got out of some. I didn't want to do it, but I would have done it, you know. Anyway, yeah.
and that's
So,
in your book, right?
yeah,
That's in the book.
I think so.
Dylan's.
I think
Yeah.
so. But Bob Dylan was apparently when he was at the Plaza Hotel and the Beatles went up to see him. The story that I did hear from I don't know if it was from him or Ringo, from Paul or from Ringo, but they're up there. The Beatles were in Bob's suite, and all of a sudden he disappears. Goes into the bedroom, from the living room, and so they're all sitting on, what's up, like, and Ringo says, "No, I'll go find out." So Ringo walks into the bedroom and comes out bleary-eyed. So uh, Dylan tightened him up. That was the first time he got high, I guess.
Hmm.
And so the other three Beatles got high following that. So you can credit that to Bob Dylan. I
Mhm. An
don't
inf
know if it's true, but why not?
Yeah, an influence in more ways than one.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted to bring up Live and Let Die because I know you've told the story many times about Paul writing it very quickly. On Talk More Talk, you said he wrote it in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Paul has often said that the whole idea to have that reggae break came from Linda. Do
Oh,
you?
probably. Well, they both were just in love. In between Ram and Wings, they spent a holiday in Jamaica, and they came back to New York on their way home and brought all these reggae records up to our apartment.
Hmm.
And they were just in love with reggae music. They just thought it was the bee's knees. So, well, first of all, the Live and Let Die theme was shot in Jamaica. So he said, we got to have a reggae bit in there. And that was probably Linda's idea. Yeah. And Sea Moon, Seaside Woman, all the other Love is Strange, all the other reggae stuff that we attempted as a pop group was, we were the first of that kind anyway to try that stuff. So I'm glad we did. It's perfect in Live and Let Die though. What's
Hmm.
the matter to you? Chick to boom, chick. You know, everything is upside down. It's great music.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Actually, Paul had a record, the 45 that he played for us. I don't remember the artist, but they had Dennis Roy, Al Capone, all these weird names. And
Yeah.
this 145 the singer's going away, and he just starts, and he said, "Drummer man, you played the music wrong." So he said, "Drummer, out of the studio. I need another." And then he gets another guy to come in and play the drums, and he sings him the part to play. The guy starts playing, "Bass player, you've not played it right." So he throws the band out of the studio, brings a whole new band in, and shows, and it's all on a 45. It's brilliant. I would love to have
Oh
that.
wow.
And Paul still probably has it. And there was another one called Club Reggae where they take all of these various acts. It's like a composition of or compilation of maybe five or six or more, eight groups that. So Cherry Red, if you can ever find that in the reggae section, it's beautiful.
Yeah. And of course, Susie and the Red Stripes, that name came from a
Yeah,
Jamaican beer. So
yeah,
right
yeah.
there.
I
One of the
always start off with after we did that though. I always who give a shoot, man? Play the musical lessons with wildlife, not do it with sati. We would just have so much fun with that
It's
stuff.
good. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think Paul would get a big kick of you talking in that accent and bringing it back.
yeah.
Um, they mention in the McCartney Legacy how around the time of 1974 or 75, the McCartney's company, MPL, were ready to give contracts to members of Wings to settle the whole money problem. And the main reason why you left, Paul, was because
I wouldn't say the main reason.
it, one of the two, that
It was
Henry.
one of the big ones. Yeah,
Yeah. So it seemed really, it upset me and very ironic that so soon after you left, they were trying to do something to make up for Wings not getting paid as well.
I think there was a break in the court case. That's what they were starting to come to terms with that. And shortly after that, I was contacted that I had some money coming.
Hmm.
And that didn't work out too well, but and I wasn't in any way, shape, or form to accept the offer that they made. And I think he just hired a business manager to to scratch my name off the list of things to do, and it was very unfair. And I said, no, no way, no way. And
Um,
it took some years later until that was rectified.
Hmm.
your successor, immediate successor, Jeff Britton,
Yeah,
um,
great
used
guy.
to used to refer to that manager. I don't know if I can say this but
Why
he
not?
used to refer to him as Mr. Shit.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I mean that's their job. I mean,
Yeah.
but not that's when you have somebody that doesn't know what the band is about and what really went into these decisions. And yeah, it's sad that I mean I still blame Paul in a way for not knowing that this stuff was going on in his immediate world with the guys that were in the trenches for him. Try living on $175 a week in London in the 70s.
Mhm.
It was really, really hard. And if I hadn't some of my royalties and residuals from my New York session days, I couldn't have done it. I couldn't have even gone out for a restaurant. One night we took Paul and Linda to a famous restaurant in London called Gavroche French restaurant. And we thought, yeah, it'd be nice. It'd be, just so we get there and we get the check and it's a healthy amount. I put my American Express card down, uh, and they don't take American Express.
Oh.
Paul had to reach in and said, "Thanks for the dinner, Paul."
Hmm.
Yeah, there was a lot of things, but when Henry left, I just saw the whole thing fizzling out and all that hard work and all of the fun and hard times just it didn't mean anything after that, and we couldn't recapture that overnight and then go next week to Lagos and make
Mhm.
this band on the run record. Because we'd been rehearsing it, and somewhere in the universe is that two-track from the barn up at Low Rannigan of the band playing that album. And it was a different animal, not the slick version that came out. Not that I'm against slick versions, but it had more meat to it. it was soulful. It had more meaning.
Wow. We'd all love to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would.
Uh, I'm
And
just
Paul must
curious.
have it. Paul must have it in his
You
archive.
think so? He doesn't let anything get by him. I mean,
No.
I never really mentioned it to him, or I might have. I don't know if I brought it up or not, but the next time I do talk to him, I can say, "Hey, whatever,"
Yeah.
because I know that they made cassettes out of that, off of that two track, and took them down so they had representations of it. But those cassettes got stolen, so that's some Nigerians walking around with gold in his pocket and didn't even know it. Um, So it's a good question, though. I thought that he would at least find it for years later, just to have something that represents that time. I mean, and it was pretty wild. It was really good representation of what it was and what it took to get there.
Right.
It'd be nice to compare the two versions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I always tell Paul that he did a good job playing my drum parts.
You mentioned that
Yeah,
when we spoke to you recently that
yeah.
what Paul plays on Band on the Run is clearly influenced by what you lay down in the
Simply because we rehearsed it up at
right.
the barn. That barn at their other farm up there in Scotland, over the hill from where they lived, uh, that barn had good acoustics. It was a big old funky old barn, and he kept a two track in there when we rehearsed. So I would imagine that two track has got to exist somewhere.
Right.
And I would think somebody like him would not only make copies, he would make digital copies,
Yeah.
you know?
Now
Uh,
maybe it was too good. Maybe after you heard the original, and then you heard what they did in Lagos, maybe you said, "Well, I don't like this." So I don't know.
yeah. Is there any chance you've seen Men on the Run?
I'm in it. I haven't seen it yet. In fact, I've been bugging the producers, Morgan and Chloe, two of the producers, and she said now it's in the hands of, I believe she said Amazon, and it's supposed to be released in February.
Right.
Right.
So they were trying to get me an advanced copy, and they said that this has never been done, and they're just worried about me playing it for everybody, and then nobody would I said, that's ridiculous.
Right.
But I don't know, but I know what I said. An interview by Morgan Neville, I believe his name, Morgan Neville, was brilliant. He knew what he was talking about. So I felt very comfortable talking to, and Chloe read me over the phone every section that I'm in and what I said. So while writing this book, I didn't want to say anything that was going to make anybody angst, or make somebody not appreciate what I was saying about those days. So she told me everything that was on tape, and I felt pretty good about that, but I still haven't seen it. And it's funny, the other night I see my buddy Ringo, and he says, "Hey, Paul stopped by the house. Yeah, he played that the biography you guys are in, the documentary. Well, you look great in it, man." So everybody's seen it but me now. Kellner saw it. I mean, all these friends. Joe Walsh was there. It's, I haven't seen it yet.
Wow.
Okay.
And I'm telling him, I said, I'm getting questions about it. Why don't you just give me the code, let me watch it one time so I can talk about it in the interviews for the book. I would have put it in the book if you had got to me sooner.
Hmm.
But it was right across the street. I recorded the interview at Fidelity Sound, it's called, on Whitsett. And I
Yeah.
used to live across the street from that studio. It was Artie Ripp's studio. Does that name ring a bell?
Yeah.
Artie Ripp was the guy that came in when I started producing Billy Joel's Cold
Yep.
Spring Harbor album.
Yep.
Uh, and then Paul said, "Hey, we did 4 or 5 songs." Paul said, "I need you to come to LA to finish the Ram album." And I just dropped it like a hot potato. I could have made millions off of that if I was smart like Artie Ripp was. But so every time I'd leave my building, the gate would open, I'd drive out, there I saw my blunder. That's not even in the top 10 of my blunders, so
Mentioned Billy Joel. did you see any sign in him that early on? This is before Piano Man, that you thought that this guy was going to be huge.
Oh, I knew it. I never would have taken. Uh, Michael Lang sent me a tape of Michael Lang from Woodstock.
Yeah.
Right.
He sent me a tape. He said, "I want you to take a look and listen to this new artist. I'm going to sign him if you like him, and I'm going to put you in the studio to produce him." I
Hmm.
went, "Oh, fantastic!" Michael was a friend, and he was going to start me on my production career.
Hmm.
I've been working with some really good people, so it was time. And so I heard the demo the demo, Billy voice and piano. Unbelievable. He'd just gotten out of the Nut House and he'd written all these songs that were so amazing. The lyrics were
Yeah.
so, the music was so great. I said, this guy's going to be huge.
Hmm.
And I'm just sorry that that was it. I never got to spend any time with him after that. We never talked until I was in the documentary, and I still haven't talked to him, but I
Right.
know he's going through some health issues, and you know,
We wish him well.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious about Michael Lang. How did you meet up with Michael Lang and strike up the friendship?
Well, I was working with one of his artists at Bearsville. We did a record up at Woodstock
Yeah,
with a girl named Karen Dalton, an amazing artist. She's
the name's familiar. Yeah.
long gone. She's an underground hit now. She's one of those people that you can't miss her. She played a long neck banjo and she phrased like Billie Holiday. She used to back phrase and she wrote such soulful songs and Katie Cruel and Down in the Station and very reminiscent of the band Plus.
Okay.
We recorded up in Woodstock and it was a so Michael was her signed her to his label. I think it was Just Sunshine Records at the time. And then Michael set us up to do a tour of Europe with her. This was just before I met Paul too. I think it was right 1970, but we opened for Santana. And here
Hmm.
was John Hall and all of these Woodstock guys, kind of country rock guys, and we're opening for the wrong band, We want Santana! They were all screaming at us. But it was really a great band, and she had some issues. She liked to drink a little too much, and she'd sing the first verse and the chorus and be guitar solo, and she'd walk off the stage and she wouldn't come back. So we didn't finish that whole tour, but that's how I met Michael, and we became good buddies over there.
Hmm. Yeah.
Can I just mention there's a couple of things you were involved with, Denny, that I never knew about before until I read it in your book. That you were at the Peace Moratorium in
Yeah,
Washington, D.C. in 1969, and you played the drums behind Give Peace a Chance for
yeah.
something that historic. Wow.
500,000 people swaying to my backbeat. And you know what I remember?
But
They sent a limo to pick me and Leonard Bernstein up at the airport. Lenny saw the limo and took it.
That
left
sounds
you.
I
about
had to
right.
get a cab.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, another Beatle connection there. You were on Give Peace a Chance in DC. And one other thing, my wife doesn't know this yet, but she'll know when she watches this show, that you actually played on Schoolhouse Rock.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, wow. I
That's a
didn't know that.
that's a big deal to a lot of people in their 40s, like, or even 50s now, I guess. But Bob Duro was a dear friend of mine that when we lived up in the Poconos and I was playing at Mount Airy Lodge in
Hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I met Bob, and Bob wrote for Miles Davis. He wrote
Yep.
"And to See the Light," all of these great songs. He's a beautiful songwriter, and he would write like one of my good buddies that I worked with a lot was Dave Frischberg, who wrote "My Attorney Bernie," "I'm Hip," and all these kind of songs that spawned people like Mose Allison and what have you
Right.
Right.
comedy jazz kind of thing. But anyway, Bob called me up. He said, "Hey, I'm doing this kids TV show, and you want to help me cut some demos for it? I got to So I went in and I don't remember what it was, My Hero Zero or Three's a Magic Number or the multiplication.
Right.
I did a bunch of those demos so he could get this project funded, and they used the demos that I played on in the final versions.
Hmm.
So yeah, and then many years later, out here in LA, Bob came out. A friend of mine actually brought him out. She managed to hook us up. We played the Troubadour. We played someplace in San Francisco and someplace in San Diego, but she made a little mini set for the Schoolhouse Rock Band, and we had Jack Sheldon was still alive. I'm just a Bill. He sang on "I'm Just a Bill," you know,
Right.
played trumpet player from the Merv Griffin show. So it was Bob, uh, Bill Takis, his bass player, and me. Bill was on the original, and Jack Sheldon. So we played the Troubadour. And these the place was packed. It was packed. We did a jazz set first.
Uh,
Yeah, we did the jazz set first. And by then the room would fill up and all these people had nose rings and tattoos and everything. They looked like they'd bite your head off, you know. And we started playing the Schoolhouse Rock music and they just all turned into 9-year-olds. It was it was fabulous.
That's great. That's
Yeah,
great. You mentioned Bob Dorough and Miles. Miles had a Christmas song, Blue Christmas,
yeah,
which I think was a single that Bob sang on.
yeah.
Um, that I think it just came out as a single or something in the
Wow.
50s or something like that. Blue Christmas had a subtitle to it.
Yeah.
Miles Davis and vocals Bob Dorough. Um, I just thought of something, Ken, if I could jump in with my last input here, because I've never asked you this before, but besides being a world-class drummer, an original member of Wings, Denny Seiwell was also a big-time voiceover guy.
mm.
No, I wouldn't say big time.
Well, I mean, I heard your website, I mean, I know you used to have some of your work on your website. I don't know if that's still the case
Yeah, I
today.
still do. I have the commercial reel and the promo trailer reel that's on my,
Well, it was like the movie trailers.
yeah,
And I could swear, I'm like, I heard that voice so many times in a world before,
yeah, yeah.
there was
No,
America.
it wasn't me. I just took bits and pieces, beds of soundtracks and stuff of those trailers, and then I recorded my voice on it. That was so I could get more work in those days. And I did. I've worked a little bit but I don't think I had an agent that really went out and got me the work that I could have gotten.
Because you have that voice that DJs like me and Ken will sell our souls for.
I used to do a
Uh,
show called The Lazarus Man with what's his name? Jeez, I can't think of his name now. He's dead now, but he was a great actor. And yeah, the Lazarus Man used to be the mystery of the Lazarus Man continues.
that's it. It's great. Go to Denny's website and listen
Yeah,
to
yeah,
some of these things. Fantastic. Fantastic.
yeah, thanks.
The first time I ever spoke to Denny, when I was finished talking to him, I said to myself, wow, he should be doing voiceover work.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yep.
think about Wings. It's like,
It's a tough.
It
These
is.
days, it's really a tough business to be in.
I know.
I never really became one of the flavors of the month, but I had a couple of shows that I did, and it was fun. I didn't have to carry drums. And now I'm thinking about not thinking. We are getting ready to do a couple of months from now. We're going to do a books on tape, so I can release this book in my voice and just get
Oh,
in
great.
in my little closet over there in the studio and record it.
Do you have any recording projects that might be coming out in
Yeah,
the
I'm
near
working
future?
next week. Just finished an album with my friend John McAndrew, and it's on Quarto Valley Records.
Right. I've heard of that.
Jazz Record is on that label as
Yeah,
well.
that's
And
I've
he's
heard.
great. He's a national songwriter. It's really a good record, and that just came out. So John McAndrew. It's called Better Side of Me. If you get a chance, check that out. It's got to be on all the the digital sites by now. Better Side of Me by John McAndrew. And I'm starting a project with a girl from Liverpool next week with my production partner, Fernando Perdomo.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Her name is uh, Jessie Morel.
Okay.
She goes to Liverpool University, LIPA, and she's quite talented and has a classical background. And she came to us through Fernando hearing some of her music. So we're going to do, of all tracks, one of them is My Love. She does
Hmm.
a version of that that's so compelling. So we're going to do that. And then a couple of days after that, I'm starting a record with a guy named, I can't think of his name right now, but Mike Colbrain, Cole. Let me see if I can find. Anyway, I don't want to plug him too much. Okay, but he's a good songwriter, great songwriter. So Fernando and I are going to do 4 tracks with him on the 26th. So I still got my hand in it. I can't, for the most part, I can't go play live and do whole shows and what have you, just because of my emphysema is makes it a little demanding to get
Hmm.
that much air. So I'm managing, but I can still work.
Do you plan any more recordings with your jazz trio?
No, unfortunately, that jazz trio was one of the best things that ever happened to me. It was a dream of mine to have an organ trio, and the organist was called away. He moves up in Portland now, and he started working for Jeff Goldblum for a little while. And
Hmm.
Jeff had a jazz band, and he hired Joe Bagg, was my
Yeah.
organist. And Joe was he's just an incredible young, talented organist. And he was paying him rock star money. I couldn't say, well, no, stick around. I'll make you at least $200 this year. It's jazz. But
Yeah.
so he was getting rock star money, and he had a family and everything, and he had to move up to Portland anyway for some new work. So it's kind of fell by the wayside. But if I had it a little more strength in me and more ability to pull it off, I'd love to do it again because the record
Yeah.
is great. It's called 2 records actually,
Two of
Boomerang
them. Yeah.
and Reckless Abandon.
Reckless Abandon. I was just listening to them. They're great albums.
Yeah, thank you.
Really enjoy them.
And I did 5 McCartney songs on Reckless Abandon.
That's right.
And then we did Live and Let Die in a jazz version on Boomerang.
Boomerang. That's the latest one, right?
Right.
So I used to tell the fans at Beatlefest, I say, I got these records here with me, and I tell them it was jazz organ, they didn't care, And the next time I talked to them, I say, oh, by the way, there's 5 McCartney songs. Then they all lined up. They wanted the
Yeah.
record.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I was interviewing you when Boomerang came out, and I did a whole promotion on the CD on
Oh,
my.
good.
Great album.
Yeah,
Thank you.
definitely. Yeah. All right. Well, this has been tremendous. I want
It's
Good.
to
always a
I'm
pleasure,
running
Denny.
out of air.
Yeah.
thank you so much for doing this,
Sure.
Danny. And please send our love to Monique.
I will indeed.
That guy named Paul, tell him if he has any downtime right now on this tour, we could probably spend a few moments with him.
I will. I'll pass it on.
Please.
Okay, thanks.
Denny, thank you for everything. And I love the book.
Yes.
And you're a great guy, very easy to work with. And I wish you nothing but the best. We all wish you nothing but the best. And we hope that, our paths cross soon again.
That would be nice.
Oh. All
And
right.
we all got them.
Denny Seiwell.
Beautiful. Everybody have a beautiful weekend, and thanks so much for, I don't know when it's going to air, but let me know when it airs anyway. And I appreciate you guys because it's you guys that keep it all going. So thank you.
And this Mets fan wishes the Dodgers all the best.
Thank you. That I appreciate. Take
Thanks, Denny.
care now.
Take care.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
Denny.
So it was great having Denny Seiwell again. He's been on the show several times over the years, and now he has a new book, so another reason for him to come on, and it's always great talking to him. So
Absolutely.
yeah, let's go around the horn, as Darren always says, and talk about what how people can reach us and what we're up to and all of that.
Mhm.
And we'll start with Darren.
All right. Well, I'm sure most of you by now know, but if you don't, my days at WFUV ended about a month and a half ago, unfortunately, out of my control and not happy about it. But what are you going to do? So right now, if you want to get in contact with me, go to Facebook and um, there's two pages you could find. If you search my name, they should both pop up. But join both of them or one of them, and I'll probably end up inviting you to the other. And it's a great way to keep in touch. I like to post lots of music stuff up there, sports stuff, if I feel like it, and I'll also share with you the next adventures in the life of Darren DeVivo. And an adventure is pretty much going to be happening very soon. So I'll have some news to share. So look for me on Facebook, Darren DeVivo, and the other page with the longer name that I never remember. And as if you want to shoot me an email, darrendevivo@gmail.com. I might as well start wearing in the new email address. And we can say hi, and I'll say hi, and then that'll be it. So that's my story.
So, Ken?
Okay, if any of you want to get in touch with me directly, my email address is everylittlething@att.net. You could also become a friend on Facebook. Just look up Ken Michaels. You'll see my face with my late dog, Boston Terrier mix, and friend me on there. Also, my radio program, my syndicated show called Every Little Thing, the best way you can get to hear that is on the website for WFDU, and that is WFDU.FM. Go to their archivals page, type in the name, Every Little Thing, and you will find the last 2 weeks worth of shows that they aired at the radio station. Or if you want to do it the old-fashioned way, you can listen live on the radio station on Saturday mornings at 6 a.m. and Sunday mornings at 8 a.m. That's Eastern Time. You can stream the radio station, again, WFDU.FM, on my own YouTube channel, which is just called Ken Michaels Radio. We have guests who attended the one-to-one benefit concert, or one of the concerts, or both of the concerts on my latest show. And that includes Mark Lapidus, who you know as the founder of the Fest for Beatles Fans, Joe Raiola, who was just on our show. He's the guy that organizes the annual tributes for John Lennon in New York City by the group Theater Within. And the next one, by the way, is December 12th, and that's at Town Hall in New York City. And Mary Ellen Barbarito, who's a super Beatle fan who goes to all the fests, came to know in recent years through another Beatle fan, but she was at both the afternoon shows. So we all share
Oh,
our memories. Well, they do, because I wasn't there. They share their memories of the concerts, what they remember about it, and we ask each other a lot of questions about those times. So in addition to doing shows with people like Gary Van Sciak, who will be on our next show from Elephant's Memory, great to have the fans there and reminisce about what they remember. It's a long time ago now, 53 years ago, but they do remember quite a lot about that time. And you can watch that show at Ken Michaels Radio. That's my YouTube channel. And on my other show that I do with Darren and Kid O'Toole called Talk More Talk, a solo Beatles video cast, we just did a special show about the upcoming festival that will be taking place in New Jersey to celebrate the 60th anniversary of Rubber Soul. It's the Everything Fab Four Fest, and our friend and colleague Ken Womack has put this together. It's happening November 6th through the 8th. And the Talk More Talk, the three co-hosts of the show, will be doing a panel on the 7th, which is a Friday morning at 9 a.m. All throughout those 3 days, panel discussions all about Rubber Soul, all about the Beatles. Since it's Talk More Talk, we're going to relate Rubber Soul to the solo careers of the Beatles. So if you can join us that day. It's November 7th at 9 a.m., but you can attend all 3 days if you want to. And Ken talks about the convention. And we also have with us two members of the Weaklings who are on. Glenn Burtnick was there, and Joe Bellia, the drummer for the Weaklings. And we have a discussion about Rubber Soul and why it's such an important album and such a big step in the careers of the Beatles. So that's our most recent show at Talk More Talk, a solo Beatles video cast. We'll also be doing another show on Power to the People on the box set with Chip Mattinger coming up very soon. That could be, I believe, next week for that. All right. And on my website, kenmichaelsradio.com, there's always Beatles trivia contests where you can win great prizes like books, CDs, DVDs. The most recent prize that I have is this book called The Beatles Collected Videography by Bill Last, who I just interviewed, by the way, on my YouTube channel. It's a listing and description for everything that exists on video, whether it be the actual videos the Beatles made, group and solo, TV appearances, film appearances, interviews, you name it. It's all there in that brand new book by Bill Last, who used to write for Good Day Sunshine, the Beatle fanzine, now writes for another Beatle fanzine called Octopus's Garden. So that should be it. That's everything going on with me.
Okay. Well, to get in touch with me, I've got two Facebook pages, just Allan Kozinn or Allan Kozinn Remixed. There is
He
also,
remembers the name of his pages.
yeah, they're simple. Uh, there is also a McCartney Legacy Facebook page and McCartneyLegacy.com or .co.uk. Both of those will work. Let's see what we're up to. And you can write to the three of us here at Things We Said Today Radio Show at gmail.com. I'll say it again because it's ridiculously long. Things We Said Today Radio Show at gmail.com. You can write to me at Allan Kozinn, all's one word, no punctuation or anything. Allan Kozinn at gmail.com. You should check us out on Twitter at Things We Said Fab. I mean X. I hate that. Hate it. And also BlueSky, which I like better. At Things We Said Today at BlueSky. And our Facebook page, Things We Said Today video podcast. There we post all the shows. We post the YouTube links to all the shows. Do watch us on YouTube if you can. And also while you're there, click like and make sure you subscribe. That would be helpful to us, both those things. We also have the audio only version of this on Podbean, and that goes to iHeartRadio and Apple Podcasts and all kinds of other places where you can find us. You can't miss us if you're looking for us. So anyway, that's it for me. And it was great having Denny on again. And for Ken Michaels and Darren DeVivo, I'm Allan Kozinn. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time.